Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and it's time to look ahead because if we don't, we might get hurt. Everybody got hurt in Week 7, so it's time to kind of push that aside for a moment, look ahead to Week 8. We had some returns in the league also, most of which did bear some fruit, and we're going to talk about all of those and more right here on the podcast today. Of course, Pat Fitzmaurice is joining us, Matthew Freedman joining us. Matthew already staring very intently at the stats. You know already he's got a lot to say. Things have been burning inside of him for the last 12 hours, so let's get it all out. Before we do, I want to remind you all we come to you from BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. That's our sponsor. Download that BetMGM app right now and go ahead and start placing your bets. Gentlemen, let's just kick things off here and just jump right into the pool because we have got the Baltimore Ravens facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And oh my goodness, maybe Tom Brady stayed at the dance too long. The Buccaneers are at home. They are 1-point underdogs against the Baltimore Ravens, as they should be with the way they've played of late. 43.5 is the number. If you like the Tampa Bay Bucs on the money line, it's even money. So Matthew Freedman, let's start with you. Tom Brady and company, I don't know if they're missing the Bruce Arians factor. I don't know if they just thought that things were going to be handed to them. I don't know what's going on, but when you lose to the Steelers and you lose to the Carolina Panthers back-to-back weeks, it is going to take its toll in Vegas on you. So do you believe this is enough of a toll, or do you think that the Ravens should be favored by more?
Okay, so a couple of general statements. On the show for the past few weeks, I've sort of had this like, oh, I wish I would have gotten on this line sooner type of thing. It was this and look ahead, and I didn't. So this past weekend, I was super aggressive in betting look ahead lines when I thought I had an edge based on my projection. So in the look ahead market, this was Baltimore +3, and I bet it. So like now my perspective is probably skewed because I'm just like, whatever, I don't care on this game. I got the best of the line. I'm just sitting here. But I think this number, and maybe I've been slow to adjust, but I think this number is off. I still think Tampa Bay should be a slight home favorite. I have this -0.5 for Tampa Bay at home. That said, like I wouldn't feel good about betting it right now, but this did open on the early Sunday night line at 1.5. It has moved down to 1 at most books, so it is starting to move towards Tampa Bay, which I think is the right movement. But that said, like in a big picture sense, Baltimore looks like the better team, and I have this going slightly towards Tampa Bay, but I don't feel good about that at all.
Now, speaking of returns, Gus Edwards comes back here for the Baltimore Ravens. Finally, the Ravens hold on to a lead by the skin of their teeth, basically. So, Pat, it's hard to have a lot of confidence in either of these teams right now, but it does feel like the Ravens are the better squad at this point. What are your thoughts on this line early on?
Yeah, maybe they're a little better, and they've played a lot of close games, so they're kind of battle-tested. But this is the spot where I kind of like to take a team coming off that humiliating game, and maybe, I don't know, maybe the Bucs have been a little overvalued. They have been ranked fairly high in people's power rankings all season. They're still 6th in DVOA, though. So this Buccaneers team, as bad as they were and as flat as they came out against the Panthers, and maybe they just thought they were going to be able to walk away with a victory without much effort in Week 7. They're still good enough to do something about this bad taste of defeat in their mouth. So I agree with Freedman. Like in the early projections, I mean, I've got Tampa as a 1-point favorite here. So I kind of am inclined to take them, and at a line this small, I'm probably just going to take them on the money line. And, I think we'll get a better performance from them in Week 8 than we got in Week 7, which would be, hard to pull off a stink bomb quite of that magnitude 2 straight weeks.
I feel like if we replay last week's show, though, we said the same thing when they lost in Pittsburgh, and we thought, well, it's okay. We're going to go beat the Carolina Panthers. And, well, that didn't really wash the stink off. Now, did it? It just got worse. Let's get to the next one on here. We've got the Denver Broncos. We assume without Russell Wilson. I can only imagine it's going to be a few weeks for him. Mark Rippon's nephew, I believe it is, Brett Rippon, under center yesterday. Not good enough against the Jets. The Jacksonville Jaguars had their opportunity, just kind of fell a little short at the goal line there. Jacksonville falls to 2-5. Denver is at 2-5. This one's in Jacksonville. 4.5 is the numbers on the Jacksonville side. They are the favorites at home, as they should be at this point. Now, the Denver defense is pretty solid. The number is 40, and if you like the upset, Denver is plus 170 on the money line. Pat, when you look at this one here, that number 40 really jumps out to me. It feels like an under, but is that an illusion?
Sorry, just quick point of order. This game is actually at Wembley. It's one of the
that's
London
correct.
games. It's a London game. But
My apologies.
Second home.
I was going to say,
yeah.
although it might be more of a home field advantage for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah.
My apologies. You're 100% right. It's at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, by the way. So again, the Jacksonville Jaguars in their second home, London. My apologies. So Pat, same question. The 40, is it low enough?
Yeah, we might get bacon with our breakfast next Sunday, but we will not get offense with our breakfast next Sunday. So, yes, Joe, I feel the same way. Like at this number, I have no interest in betting this game. Maybe, I don't know, maybe a little bit of interest in Denver. It seems like this is skewed a bit too much towards the Jaguars and giving them, I don't know, a little too much credit, but I don't know how this game gets to 40 because both of these teams are so much better defensively than they are offensively.
Right.
And, even though I don't know that there's a discernible drop off from Russell Wilson to Brett Rippon at this point, like, especially though, if it's Rippon, I'll feel even more confident about betting the under here. And I'm kind of surprised they set it as high as 40, realizing they, we may well again get Brett Rippon in week 8. So I don't know. Don't think this one gets to 40.
How about you, Freedman? And it's funny, I made a mistake, but really your correction is something we should all consider. This is kind of like their second home. I mean, they do have a fan base out there in Jacksonville. I might even wonder if this is more of an energetic feel for the Jaguars than it is playing in Jacksonville at times, to be honest with you. It's a big, giant venue. There's a lot of pomp and circumstance around it when they show up. So do you think actually that has any advantage here for the Jaguars with that 4 points?
Maybe I did toy with the idea of actually giving them a home field advantage because they do play in London every year, but there's no continuity in terms of like the coaching staff. So it still doesn't feel like it should be a home field advantage, but I definitely took in the look ahead, that'll be a common refrain, under 40 and a half. I think this is an under game. I have this projected at, 38.4. So I do think there's value here on the under, even at the line of 40, which we see now. I would definitely, that's the way I would be approaching this because I don't want to be betting on the Broncos, and that is where I do see a little bit of value here, and that's assuming that it's Rippon instead of Russell Wilson. But I don't want to be betting on them. I did that last week, and I hated myself for it, and I rightfully hated myself for it. I'm not doing it again. I swear to you, for the rest of the year, I am not betting on the Broncos.
I think last week, I should say, I don't think he had enough confidence in that Jets defense. It's the Jets defense, baby. 3 levels of the D. Quinnen Williams, CJ Mosley, Sauce Gardner. There's not a lot of teams that have somebody who's a stud at each level of the defense. And when you have that, that's a really big deal. And, I can't believe that I'm like the defender of the Jets on this show every week. I don't know how that ever happened, but my goodness, I'm embarrassed. All right, let's get to the Carolina Panthers coming off their second win. That's right, second win of the year against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are 3-4. I know this is the most exciting game of the week that you've all got circled. The Falcons are 6.5 point favorites at home. 41.5 is the number. If you like the Panthers, just keep rolling, plus 215. Now, we don't know if we're going to get Sam Darnold back in this game, and I don't know if that makes a difference or not. But I don't know about you, Freedman. This one seems off to me. 6.5 is a lot of juice on the side for the Atlanta Falcons, a team that I know sometimes they show up and other times they don't. And when they don't, it gets ugly. I feel like this is a little bit too much respect. What are your thoughts here?
Maybe. I don't know where Fitz has it. I have this at 6.25. So very close. This is one of the few games where I don't have a position and I don't really anticipate taking a position because I think Carolina, they were the right side last week. I did have a bet on them. I'm not really buying it 2 weeks in a row. I think it will be PJ Walker who starts for them. He executed the offense better than we've seen any quarterback execute the offense for them this year, which doesn't say much. Doesn't say much, but it says something at least. So I think he gets another start, but I'm not really desirous to be betting on either of these teams. And the total 41, I have it at 40.7. So in the same neighborhood. This is one of the few stay away games for me.
Pat, are you of the same mind? Bit of a stay away for you?
On the side, yeah. On the total, I like the under. Like the Panthers with no Christian McCaffrey. It was like they had a jolt before the one of those things where maybe rigor mortis doesn't set in for a little while until after. So I I don't know. This is another one. I just like, how does this game get to 40, especially when we saw how stubborn Arthur Smith is about sticking to the run, like quickly getting down double digits in week 7 and just like refusing to throw. Marcus Mariota still attempts 13 passes. So this game is definitely going to play to a certain script, and you can bet the Panthers aren't going to be pass heavy either. Yeah, this seems like it's going to be a quick game, mercifully for anyone who actually has to watch it.
Okay, you know what? I will second Pat's statement on this. If it's anything for me, it's the under. It's under or nothing.
Yeah,
it sounds like if it's anything for you guys, it's actually the rushing props in this game. Look for Algier, look for Foreman, especially if Chuba's out.
Yeah. And Freedman, you asked what I had said it. I mean, I've got it at exactly 6.5, so I don't see any value here. But I've got the total projected at 39, so I definitely see value there.
Okay.
So mad, Pat, because 2 weeks ago I thought we were going to get the Carolina Panthers coaching firing bounce, but instead we got the bounce after the Christian McCaffrey trade. It's just a week behind.
Yeah, so I mean, like they're going through this trauma, and it's kind of hard to figure out where like they're going to be psychologically. Exactly.
I don't know, but yeah, you beat
DJ Moore. DJ Moore, finally, we saw something.
Finally, and he almost died doing it, too. Yeah, poor DJ Moore. I mean, I was so worried about him. I was like, great. He got it at what cost? There he is laying on the ground there, right under. I mean, he was practically underneath the stadium there in the corner there after the end zone. Oh, my goodness. All right, let's get to the next guy here. It's the Justin Fields-led Chicago Bears. They are 10-point underdogs traveling to Dallas. The Cowboys pick up a victory after a sluggish start to the game. Things started to click. Zeke had some good run in this game. Dak started to shake the dust and the rust off. So they are 10-point favorites. Big number, 42.5 is the over-under. Pat, let's start with you on this one here. 10 is a big number. Do you think the Dallas Cowboys are up to this task? Because defensively, they've been very strong this year. And now with Dak back, it certainly looks like points are also now on the table.
Yeah, I mean, I do think this is a number still as big as it is. I don't think it's big enough to go any other way but on the Cowboys here. And it's just two teams in very different modes. And I think the Bears are just kind of, they are in a clear rebuild here. Dallas has been like playing fantastic, feeling great about themselves, even when they lost to, their division rival, the Eagles in week 6. They did so kind of respectably. Like digging a hole for themselves early, coming back late, took care of business in week 7. And man, I mean, we saw this defense just totally harass Jared Goff yesterday. The Cowboys, they're number 1 in the league in sacks. They're number 1 in the league in pressures. I mean, they are just making life hell for opposing quarterbacks. And we've seen that the Bears have like maybe the worst offensive line in the league. Like as little as they have thrown this year, Fields is still under constant duress whenever he throws, even though, the defense is not like has no reason to prepare for the pass. Like the Bears are so ridiculously run heavy, but I don't see how the Bears do any business on offense against this Cowboys defense.
Yeah, especially with Michael Parsons and Marcus Lawrence breathing down your throat. Friedman, is this the time to jump on the 10 before it goes to 11?
I'm sicko. I actually bet this the other way, and I bet it at 10, thinking because I have this projected at 9.5. So I will do whatever I can to bet against the Cowboys. It's again I have disease, and I'm saying this, but this is a team, and I bet this on the look ahead. So I wasn't taking week 7 into account, but the Cowboys, they easily could have lost this game to the Lions. Sure. Their defense is great. Their offense is still finding its way. And, some of that is maybe rust with Dak coming back, whatever it is. But the Cowboys offense really did not look good. The Bears, I think, actually have a decent defense. 10 is a lot of points. And I think the Cowboys are one of the few good teams in the league. Like I do. I have them power rated as the number 4 team. I think they're not all that far off from the Eagles, but there are very few teams in the NFL this season who should be favored by a touchdown or more. And I just don't know if the Cowboys are quite in that tier yet. And based on what happens tonight, I could be hating myself tomorrow with this position. And I feel like I probably will be, but this again feels like the Carolina Panthers position going against the Buccaneers of just, a double-digit underdog, just bet it and hold your nose, knowing that more often than not this season, that bet is going to cash.
All right. Let's see tomorrow if you hate yourself in the morning. The Miami Dolphins.
I always hate myself in the morning. It just depends on the reason.
That's why we record at this hour.
Yeah.
It's the best version of Freedman. It's my favorite podcast version. The Miami Dolphins 4-3, picking up a win last night. They are 3.5-point favorites on the road against Detroit. The Lions going in the wrong direction. Not enough grit, I guess, at the end of the day. They are now 1-5 again at home, 3.5-point dogs. 50 is the number for this game, a pretty hefty number here, and especially with that Detroit Lions defense on hand. Now, if you like the weird upset, plus 145 on the money line. But Freeman, what do you see when you look at the look-ahead numbers here early on? Is there any value on either side of Miami, Detroit?
I have this at 3.25, so I'm not really seeing any value here. And by the way, shout out on Fitz for getting the pick right in the Sunday night football game of Pittsburgh versus Miami. That was such a tilting game because it really could have gone either way, in terms of how that game played out. But I don't see any.
Well, maybe
here.
if Pittsburgh maybe actually caught an interception or two, it would have gone another way, possibly. I mean, you can't have those moments. You can't drop those moments, no pun intended. Like, you just can't do it. Those are the ones that change the momentum of a game. And when you get more than one and you fail twice, that's it. You just typically don't come back from that. All right, go ahead. Early value, you see none. Anything else you want to add to this bad boy?
No, I see nothing.
Okay, Pat Fitzmaurice, put the glasses on. What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, if Miami's 3.5-point favorites, I saw it at 3 on DraftKings. If I could get it at 3.5, maybe I've got some interest in taking the Lions as a home dog, getting that sort of key half point. But I think the line's pretty spot on. Like Freedman, I had this. I mean, I've got the total's 50. I've got it at 50, and I've got Miami as a 3-point favorite. So no more than half a point.
Could the total surprisingly underperform? And the only reason I bring that up is because you still have Tua kind of shaking some of the rust off. We saw it in the game. There's moments where he looked good, moments where he made some, questionable decisions, but also Amon-Ra St. Brown dealing with that concussion issue. He might not play. DeAndre Swift did not play coming off the bye, which was not a good sign for him. He had that fumble issue with Jamal Williams. This is a very big number, and I think all of us initially see it and go, yeah, that makes sense. But as we look a little bit harder on it, is that actually the way to approach this one? Maybe the under?
Yeah, I mean that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Freedman. Oh,
I know. I'm just so happy you're both excited about the point I brought up. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we'll see this come down if we get word during the week that maybe Amon-Ra isn't going to be able to go. With the player coming off a concussion on a Sunday, usually it's around 50-50 whether they suit up the following week. But, Amon-Ra was coming off a different injury. Maybe they just give him the extra week. DeAndre Swift. So, if there's no Swift and no Amon-Ra St. Brown, that's a lot of explosion gone from the Detroit offense. You've got guys like Khalif Raymond out there, Jamal Williams, who is a, very good all-around running back, but there's just no explosion to his game, really. He's not going to be getting those long touchdowns. So, yeah, I mean, there's just the Lions will not have the ability to score from anywhere on the field the way they do with St. Brown and Swift out there. And I would definitely think that would affect the total.
Freeman, what are your thoughts on that 50? Is it time to jump on that now?
Yeah, I mean, I have this projected at 50.6, but that doesn't take into account Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift. So if there's anything, this is the highest total on the slate. And if there's anything we've learned this season is that football can be really bad and boring sometimes. And so I think if there is a side, it's the under.
I feel like we got spoiled. Last year was so magnificent. The playoffs were so magnificent. And I feel like this is our penance for it somehow. I guess it's that old Brooklyn Catholic Italian in me where I gotta say, you had nice things. Now you got to go sit and you got to, do 100 rosaries and think about all the things you did last year. All right, let's go to Arizona and Minnesota. Minnesota coming off the bye. They are 5-1 in the driver's seat for that division. Earmuffs, Fitz, earmuffs. Arizona is 4-point underdogs heading to Minnesota in this one. They pulled off a victory themselves. DeAndre Hopkins back this past week and certainly saw his fair share of work right out of the gate. 48.5 is the number for this one, plus 165 on the money line if you like the Arizona Cardinals to upset. Freedman, let's start with you on this one. 48.5, to me, this one feels like more of an over. Is it time to jump on this line now?
48.5. I have this at 47.7. You know, I'm in that same neighborhood. I'm probably not betting it. What I am betting, already bet again on the look ahead. Mad at myself, I didn't get it at 6. I got it at 5.5. I'm very much on the Cardinals in this spot. As disgusting as it is, you bet on Cliff Kingsbury when he's on the road, when he's an underdog, and when he's a road underdog. This is the perfect situation in his career. I don't know what it is, because I don't think it has anything to do with him. I think it has to do with like the game state and Kyler Murray taking over. But Cliff Kingsbury, 15-3-2 against the spread as a road underdog. Like,
wow,
that's significant.
Stunning.
It's stunning for a guy who just seemingly can't get out of his way. But it, like in this situation, like as a home favorite, he's absolutely horrible. As a road dog, he's like one of the best coaches in the league. So I'm very much on him in this spot. I have this projected at 3.5. So I do think that there's some value here, a little bit of value, but really it's just like I want to be on the Cardinals in this spot.
All right. After hearing that number, Pat Fitzmaurice, what are your thoughts on this contest?
Oh man, I like Freedman has driven home this point about Kingsbury before, and he's so right about it. But I just don't want to bet the Cardinals at all after basically the way they needed to. What needed to happen for them to win that game against the Saints 42-34? Not exactly decisively, but like Andy Dalton throws 4 interceptions, 2 of them get returned for touchdowns. Like the Cardinals did everything they could to give that game away. And yet on the other side, I mean, the Vikings, yeah, Joe, it obviously makes me upset that the Vikings are well ahead of the Packers in the standings and probably have the NFC North in hand this year. But the Vikings are absolutely living a lie. I mean, they're 5-1. They're 2-4 against the spread. Like I think they're 17th in total DVOA. Like this is a completely average team masquerading as a good team. And so like, and maybe that's why the total, the number is as modest as it is. I think most people would look at this and say like, wow, the Vikings are only favored by 4 against, you know, this very mediocre Cardinal team. Like at first blush, you know what I think of the Vikings, and I'm still inclined to bet them, even at,
I understand,
even thinking they're pretty mediocre. But, you know, Freedman has pointed out the Cliff thing time and again. I'm probably just going to walk away from this game. Like, I would feel bad about betting on either team here.
That's what a reasonable person should do. I'm clearly not reasonable.
Oh no, that ship has sailed many weeks ago. Let's go to Las Vegas Raiders. You know, we talked about this, Pat, you and I want to say on one of the FP shows earlier this week, where it feels like to us that the Raiders might be this team that comes out of the bye and starts to put some things together. It might not always be pretty, but it's going to improve. They got a victory. They're going to take on the New Orleans Saints, who talk about not being able to get out of their own way. We assume Andy Dalton's going to be the quarterback. That seems to be the way things are trending here. 47.5 is the over-under. If you like New Orleans to win at home, it's plus 110 on the money line. They are 2-point underdogs, though, at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. Pat Fitzmaurice, let's talk about Vegas and New Orleans. Do you see opportunity here? Is that opportunity just to bet the Saints on the money line, or do you think that this Raider trend out of the bye is going to continue into a second week in a row?
I do think there's opportunity to bet the Saints on the money line. I've got this one projected basically even. I think it should be a pick 'em. And the Saints have been undervalued, in my opinion, all year, and they should have bumped off the Cardinals. Like I bet the Saints last Thursday night, continuing a Thursday night losing streak I'm on, and like I still feel like it was the right bet. Give Marquez Callaway doesn't let a ball slip through his fingers and turn into a pick 6. Like that very easily could have gone the other way. And on the other hand, though, I have been guilty of undervaluing this Raiders team. Like you have to say the Raiders have one of the better offenses in the league because they can do it through the air. They can do it on the ground. Like this is a multifaceted Raider team, and I bet the under on that Raiders Texans team because I thought it was sort of the the Raiders souped up pace of like scoring a lot of points, getting a lot of yards, and having this sort of sieve-like defense versus the Texans who just turn everything into a rock fight. And I thought the Texans were going to like turn it into a rock fight successfully, and I was completely wrong. It was
they just don't tackle anybody.
Yeah,
I mean, if you watch that game, it's just like they have no inclination to tackle anybody.
No,
like,
they are.
That stuff's going to crush you. It's going to crush you.
I think the Texans are leading the league in missed tackles.
Are they? I didn't even know that stat for sure. I mean, just by watching, if they weren't leading the league in missed tackles, then it would be absurd. Like, it was the way the Falcons used to be in the last couple of years, where you'd watch the games, you'd watch just the lack of aggression towards the other team, where you're just like, oh, you're gonna run. You know what? Why don't you just go? Just go. Yeah. I don't care. You just run. You go and score that touchdown. You go ahead and score it. Freedman, winning's contagious, but losing's also contagious. The Saints have lost 2 in a row here. You start to hear the voices. I feel like this is kind of a big game here for the Saints. And I mean, we are in week 8. This is kind of that fork in the road where if the Saints take another L here, their season could sort of unravel. I mean, it's right on that precipice. Michael Thomas has not played in weeks. We don't know if he's ever going to play again. I don't know what's going on there. So what do you see in this one? What's the projection model have you at this week on this contest?
Yeah, I'm very similar to Fitz in that I think there's opportunity on the Saints. I bet them early. I bet them at 2.5. I think they should be slightly favored in this game. Like slight favorites, but close to a pick 'em. At home, I don't think that Raiders defense is all that great. Their offense is good. And I would say, like, if they're not a top 10 team, but they are kind of on the precipice. They're like, somewhere in 11 through 14. Sure. So I think they're an above average team. Their offense is good, but the Saints at home, and just like Derek Carr historically has been horrible as an underdog in his career. I think he's 15, 25-2 against the spread as an underdog. As a favorite. So like Derek Carr as a favorite, I want to be betting against him in that spot. And even outside of that, I would still think that there's value in this position on the Saints. But I'm not taking like the motivational factors into account.
Sure. I wonder if he sees himself as the underdog in this game, though. Vegas doesn't see them, but I feel like the Raiders are kind of wearing that underdog moniker because of their record or because of the hype that didn't happen, a lot of the media noise. So although they are favorites on paper, I feel like they're underdogs in their heart. We'll see what happens there. The New England Patriots 3-3 against the juggernaut New York Jets, 5-2 in New York. That's right. Now they don't have Breece Hall anymore, so Michael Carter is going to go back to getting that workload. Ty Johnson, I'm sure, is going to work as well. The New England Patriots, regardless, are 1.5-point favorites in this one. Now, typically in these contests, Zach Wilson completes a lot of balls to the New England Patriots. We've seen that time and time again when these two teams match up. Freedman, when you're looking at this one, the number's 41. If you like the Jets for the upset, you're getting even money on it. Do you think New England goes in there and teaches a lesson to the Jets, or do you think this new look Jets and that defense can bring the Patriots kind of down to their level a little bit and somehow eke out a victory?
So I do have the Patriots favored in this spot by 2.5. The early line last night was 1, and that's similar to what we saw in the look ahead market. And so because it wasn't anywhere near a key number, and I don't have my projection past a key number, I decided not to bet it just to kind of see which direction the market would go. So it has moved towards the Patriots, which is, where I'm showing value here. So I might bet it, but given that we're not near a key number, I'm probably just staying away. But if I'm on any side here, it is the Patriots.
Pat, are you on the Patriots side too, or do you think this Jets team is kind of just rolling downhill right now?
Yeah, I don't want to get caught doubting the Jets again, but how do they move the ball without Breece Hall? I mean, Zach Wilson is just now. Yeah, Zach Wilson has looked so bad, and like Breece Hall gave them an explosive dimension to their running game. Like he was not just good, he was explosive, like a 60-point or a 62-yard touchdown run early in that game against Denver in a game where just a little bit of offense was going to do the trick. And so where does that offense come from now? Michael Carter is good, but he's not going to generate those types of plays as often as Breece Hall. So I'm concerned about how the Jets offense hangs here. Obviously, I'm not too excited about the Patriots offense either. It's slow and plodding and just basically trying to sledgehammer you to death. So I'm staying away from the side here, interested in the under yet again. Like a lot of these low total unders, set at 40 or 41. And I'm looking at the two teams thinking, how are they possibly going to get to 40? And this is another one of those games.
The undefeated Philadelphia Eagles, 6-0 at home, 10.5-point favorites against their state counterpart, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Kenny Pickett, continues to show some moments, and I think that's all going to go in the right direction. George Pickens, certainly another wonderful catch last night for that TD. The number's 44. I mean, look, this seems to be a very clear-cut situation where the Eagles, coming off a bye, a very complete team, in a situation where they should win this game handily. But Pat, we've seen this time and time again, sometimes where that is not the case. Do you feel that this 10.5 is a safe number?
I don't feel like it's a safe number, Joe. Freedman gave me credit earlier for being right about the Steelers on Sunday night against the Dolphins. But I mean, let's face it, that felt like a very Weasley cover. One of those bets you were probably wrong about and still win anyway. So I cannot take any credit for that. I'm going to kindly thank Freedman and let him keep that credit in his pocket for now. Boy, I've got this at 10 in my early projections, and the total is kind of right on too. I'm probably not touching this one, but I feel like I've been giving the Steelers too much credit. Like the Eagles are definitely close to 10 points better here, and coming off a bye, presumably healthier than they were going in. I'm definitely not betting against the Eagles here, but I kind of also don't want to bet on them at the big number.
Well, here's the question too. Some teams come out healthier from the bye, but sometimes they come out flat. If they do, does this 44 kind of end up playing to an under, surprisingly?
It could. Yeah. But man, the Philly's got one of the best offenses in football, and Pittsburgh's defense, like we've seen, there are holes. Philly could definitely throw up 35 or 40 points in this game. So, with their ability to almost hit this number by themselves, I don't think I can bet the under here.
Freedman, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I have this slightly to the over 44.3. So it's not like I'm really taking a position there either way, but I am disgusting enough to take a position when there's basically the same margin of value on the spread. I am on the Eagles in this spot, and I did bet it in the look ahead market at 10. I just saw that number and I was like, you know what? There's a good chance that this goes above 10 later, and I'm just going to be kicking myself that I didn't grab it at 10. So I have this projected at 10.75. So Given it 10.5, it's not as if there's, I think value there now. But if I had to bet one of these sides, this goes against my don't bet big favorites. But I think the Eagles are one of the few teams in the league that actually do deserve to be big favorites against most opponents, or at least bottom feeding opponents. And I think that's what the Steelers are right now. The Eagles, and then I think the Chiefs, the Bills. Those are the three teams that deserve to be big favorites against bad teams when they are at home. And I think it checks the box here. So 10.75, you're probably not betting it now, but if at some point this does dip down to 10, I would grab it at that number.
The Tennessee Titans are at top of their division right now. They are 3.5-point favorites as they travel to the Houston Texans. So I don't know how plucky you guys think the Texans are anymore. 41 is the number if you like Houston for the upset, plus 165. Freedman, sometimes there's these letdown games, right, where you have those big in-division opponents, right, where you're battling at the top, and then you go take on the Texans, and you're like, yeah, it's the Texans. Is there any letdown here potentially in this one for Tennessee?
Maybe. I have this projected at 2.25. So I've bet it. Wow. I'm that sicko. I've bet Houston plus 3.5. And Tennessee, yeah, they got a tough win, but it was a divisional opponent. It was a rematch. They had already played each other. They were at home. So, weird stuff happens in division, and it's not that weird for the idea of Houston beating a divisional opponent who's not all that good when Houston's hosting. That's not that crazy.
Okay. How do you see this one, Pat, when you're looking ahead here? Do you see Tennessee coming out and just rolling over and taking care of business, or maybe just a little bit of a letdown?
On the surface, I kind of see it the same way Freedman does, where maybe there's a little bit of value on the Texans. But I was driving around in the car on Saturday night listening to a Tennessee beat writer talk about the Titans and how the offensive line has slipped And, that's why Derrick Henry has not been as effective as he has in the past. And there are all these holes on defense, and, which is true. I think the Titans are like 17th in DVOA against the run, or 19th in DVOA against the pass, or vice versa. Like, they're slightly below average on defense. And every time I look at the Titans and whatever their line is, I want to bet against them. Like, I just don't believe in the team at all. And then every time they surprise, they're 4-2. They're leading the division. They're 4-2 against the spread. They were the number one seeds in the AFC last year at 12-5, which seems absolutely ludicrous. Mike Vrabel just gets things done. Like, he takes care of business. And so when I see that there's like a little bit of value in Houston, like, every instinct is to pounce on it, but I think I'm just going to show respect to Mike Vrabel and walk away from this one.
That's fair. Actually, I gotta say, like, that's probably the smart thing. There are certain teams where it's just like, you know what, there's something going on with this team that I can't really quantify. And I feel like it's a similar case like with the Giants, where it's just like they're somehow winning games. It's, it's something with the culture, and you can try to take that into account in some sort of power rating by moving it in some direction that's not really accounted for based on like your EPA numbers or whatever it is that you're taking into account. But like Pat is right. Like, the smart thing would be to say, like, do I really want to be betting on Houston in the spot, and then just to walk away? But I'm not smart. So I am betting on Houston in the spot, but like, I probably shouldn't be.
Friedman, I'm going to task you in the offseason with finding a metric that measures heart. I want you to find that. I want you to figure that out. All right. That's your offseason thing. Yeah. The EKG. What's the EKG of the? All right. Let's get to Washington and Indianapolis. The Washington Commanders, a stunning victory at home. They are still 4-point underdogs, regardless, traveling to Indianapolis, who is 3-1. 41.5 is the number. If you like Washington to just keep the good times rolling with Brett Rippon, it's plus 175. Friedman, let's start with you again on this one here. The Commanders and the Colts. Is it time to just go right back to assuming that the Commanders are the Commanders, or do you see potentially a little bit of value here on their side?
So the early line on this last night was 4.5. It's moved to 4. The look ahead was 6, and that's where I bet it on Washington.
Well
but
done.
4.5, 4. I see that basically where it should be. I have this projected at 4.5. So if I hadn't gotten it on the look ahead, I would be staying away at this point.
Okay, Pat, same thing. Has the ship already sailed on this one for you?
Yeah, I have this right at 4.5, and the total is right on. And both of these teams, I mean, if we're getting Friedman to develop the gridometer, maybe I can work on a trustometer for betting purposes. Both of these teams would register extremely low on the trustometer. Like, I'm not sure they would even register. So yeah. I'm not betting this one.
All right, let's walk away. Let's go to Los Angeles instead. The Los Angeles Rams, 3-3 against the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the Rams at home are still, as they should be, underdogs, plus 1.5. Because why? The San Francisco 49ers are their daddy in the regular season every single time. How many times do we have to get beat over the head with it? I don't know. 42 is the number. They have Christian McCaffrey now with a full week of practice. This one seems kind to me with the 1.5 Fits. I don't know how you see this. If you like the Rams to win on the money lines, plus 110, but I don't. Until it's proven otherwise, I'm just going to continue to stay the course. Fitz, are you staying the course with the 49ers and their new toy Christian McCaffrey now?
Totally with you, Joe. I've got this projected at 49ers should be a 2.5 point favorite, and that's not even factoring in the who's your daddy dimension of this. So, yeah, I am taking the 49ers, and I think it's like a gift that this number is as low as it is.
Friedman, your thoughts on this number?
So this is one point where Fitz and I have a really a pretty wide divergence in what we're seeing here. I have this, I hate to say it, I have the Rams as 1.75 favorites at home.
Wow.
But I will say, here's the thing. In the look ahead market, I was right on the number. And this was like 1.5 in the look ahead market. Favoring the Rams. And so I saw that number and I was like, you know what, regardless of whatever my projections say, I want to be on Kyle Shanahan against the Rams as a road underdog. Like, he's like Cliff Kingsbury in that way. As a road underdog, Shanahan crushes. So I did bet this plus 1.5 on the look ahead market on the 49ers, and now it's flipped. So the thing is, I do see value in the Rams, but like, I don't if I had to bet it now, I would bet the Rams, but I would just hate myself. And I would say, like, you know what? I haven't adjusted my number low enough to account for the fact that, like, their offense has no continuity and their defense is in shambles. Like, their defense, I don't know what it is. Like, they're not getting any stops. Like, they have some big players, but those players aren't supplemented with anyone else who's able to make a play.
They are a stars and scrubs roster. For anybody who plays fantasy, that's what the Rams are. And the problem with those is if your stars don't perform at that high level every single time, the scrubs aren't making up the difference. And I'm not calling those guys scrubs. I'm saying this is just the theoretical compilation of this team. Like, this is how they've put it together. 7-1, by the way, the 49ers are in their last 8 games. That one loss is the one in the championship game where they really had it in their grasp and could have, but Jimmy Garoppolo decided to say, and that's the always thing. It's always the Garoppolo factor, I think, that gives people pause in these games where you're waiting for Garoppolo to make stupid mistakes like he did yesterday. And you go, oh, Jimmy Garoppolo could kill this game on his own. But somehow the 49ers always find a way against the Rams.
And Stafford can absolutely outstupid Jimmy Garoppolo in this game.
That is true.
That is the thing.
Point.
I mean, like, talk about a game with a large pick six factor that could turn the spread either way in a heartbeat. With these two quarterbacks, I mean, yeah. So that's one thing. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just sorry to interrupt there. Here's one thing I will say on the 49ers. Like, they got miraculously healthy this past week. Like, on the injury report, a lot of their guys have come back. Trent Williams has come back. You know, like, there's a very good chance that I haven't adjusted them up enough, given how healthy they are now. That said, like, they didn't really do anything against the Chiefs to make me feel like I needed to adjust them drastically in the power ratings. I haven't.
Take this, Freedman, for whatever it's worth. I don't think anybody in the NFC, maybe the Eagles at this point, maybe, makes me feel like they can compete with any of those juggernaut teams in the AFC. I'm talking the Chiefs. I'm talking the Bills. I mean, heck, you know, if the Bengals keep kind of turning things around the way they are right now, the way they're looking the last 2 weeks, I'm just saying, I feel like the NFC is just kind of like that redheaded stepchild a little bit. Like, I just don't know how good those teams are.
That's fair, but you're at home. You know, you're going against the team that beat you in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. You've got your left tackle back. You just traded for Christian McCaffrey. Go keep it close. You know, like, that's all I'm saying. And not that you need to get
Coach
the win.
Freedman is not happy with the 49ers. He is going straight to the media after this game. I could tell you.
Just make it a one-score game, you know?
Yeah. I want to know how Freedman's model has the Rams favored by that much. Like, does your model have Eric Dickerson at running back for the Rams?
Oh, Fitz is on fire today. You could catch him in the Poconos, by the way, this summer if you're looking. All right, the New York Football Giants 6-1, taking on the 4-3 Seattle Seahawks. Is there a better story in the NFL than Geno Smith? I don't know if there is. They're not going to have DK Metcalf. I don't know for how long, but they're not going to have for this game. I can tell you that. Regardless, the Seahawks, 2.5-point favorites in this one. 46.5 is the number. If you like the Giants to just keep on winning, because that's what the Giants do, it's plus 114. So Cinderella's meet here in this matchup. Fitz, I'm just going to ask you this straight up. Is the wrong team favored in this game?
No, I mean, I do think it should be Seattle. Like, both of these teams have overachieved big time. Seattle is, their season to me in a lot of ways is more remarkable than the Giants season. Like, I thought Seattle was just going to be absolute trash this year, and they've overachieved on defense, and offensively they've actually been potent. So I think they deserve to be favored, but I've got them as a smaller favorite than what the line shows. I've got Seattle's a 2-point favorite in this one, so maybe a little bit of value on the Giants. And who can argue with the results they've gotten so far? I mean, betting the Giants has been good business. So I probably will bet the Giants on this one. But, Seattle's a very live team. Like,
they are.
I don't know. I mean, I'm much less inclined to bet against the Seahawks than I was the first few weeks of the season, where I kind of paid for it.
All right, Freedman, your thoughts on the Giants Seattle? You like the Giants maybe on the plus 114? That's a pretty good number you're getting there.
Yeah, I like the Giants in the spot, and I'm angry that it's moved to 3 at DraftKings, 3 minus 120. Where maybe if I'd been just a little more patient, I would have gotten that. But whatever, I'm on the Giants at 2.5. I had, like Fitz, I have this projected at 2, so I do think there's a little bit of value there, and underdogs have been the side this season. They are 60-45-1 against the spread this year. and Daniel Jones as a road underdog is 13-4 against the spread for his career. Like that dude literally
I
has
like
the
the
dog in
Giants
him.
outright. I think the wrong team's favored in this one. I just do. Sometimes things just don't make sense. We talked about it. Just got to roll with the punches. All right. And perhaps what was the dumbest post-game interview comment that I saw all day yesterday. Aaron Rodgers said, and I quote, "I think this is exactly what we need. We need to go to Buffalo and travel there. I think this is what that team needs, to go out there, and that's what we need. We need to play the Buffalo Bills off a bye." This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Have you watched your team play, Aaron Rodgers? I don't know what's going on here. You are 10.5-point underdogs in this game. So careful what you wish for, Mr. Rodgers. This is a 47.5. If you like the Green Bay Packers to win outright and you're drinking the same tea as Aaron Rodgers, it's plus 400 on the money line. I'm going to give Pat some time to marinate on this one. Freedman, let's start with you. Is Mr. Rodgers anywhere close in this neighborhood to the 10.5?
I have this at 11.5. I did have it at 10.5 before week 7, but the Packers continue. I'm going to bump them down aggressively now. I was steadfast in holding the line on the power ratings early on in the season when they weren't looking great. And now I'm making up for it aggressively each week whenever they suck. And this line was 8.5 in the look ahead market. And I pounced on it because I was just like, look, the Packers could suck again this week and this could be above 10. So very happy to have the Bills at 8.5. I still think they offer value at 10.5.
All right, Fitz, I gave you some extra time to collect your thoughts and your feelings. Please share with the group.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly not betting on Green Bay at this point in the season, and I'm inclined to just, although I do have this at 10.5, I believe, as Freedman does, the Bills are probably the better value here. But maybe when Rodgers was talking about that, I can think of a specific game he probably had in mind, and that was when the Packers went to Arizona last year. I think the Cardinals were 8-1 or 9-1 at the time for a Thursday night game, and the Packers did not have Devontae Adams, who I believe was out with turf toe. They didn't have David Bakhtiari at left tackle. They didn't have Jair Alexander for that game. They were severely shorthanded, and they went out and beat the Cardinals, who at the time people were talking about as being Super Bowl favorites. Now, we know the Cardinals turned out to be not that good and basically fell apart after that loss. That is a blueprint, I guess, if you're looking for a Packer upset here. I don't see a Packer upset happening. They're just too limited offensively, and the Bills just too explosive offensively.
By the way, logic is sound, by the way, but the application of said logic against the said Buffalo Bills coming off said bye is said insane. Yes, Freedman.
Yeah, by the way, I got to say, for the past few weeks, I've absolutely loved listening to Tom Brady on the Let's Go podcast on Mondays and Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show on Tuesdays. It's just each week, it's just you can hear them getting more and more depressed. It's a hilarious listen.
The only difference is Tom Brady still sits on a pile of rings and Aaron Rodgers has one at the end of the day. So Tom Brady's going to be depressed, but how depressed can you be if you're Tom Brady? I mean, some things in his life aren't going well, but still, let's think about that. You've won all these championships. For Rodgers, I think the frustration is, you've kind of created this universe. And this is what happens sometimes too in those teams where you pay the quarterback a ton of money. It's very hard to surround them with all the pieces you need to win in a 53-man roster. I think it's what hurt the Chiefs this year, too. You start to see that the cap start to affect the roster as a whole. And whenever that starts to happen, it's why the Jalen Hurts Eagles are so good, because you can afford to go out there and do lots of other things. It's why the early Mahomes teams were so good. The Josh Allen teams are so good. Once you start paying the quarterback that exorbitant amount of money, the Brady Patriots stayed so good for years and years because Brady always took pay cuts and they surrounded him with more talent. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I can see you're chomping at the bit here. Go ahead.
Yeah. I don't want to give Packers GM Brian Gutekunst a pass for saying, it's Aaron Rodgers' cap number that's keeping them from improving the personnel. I mean, obviously the Jordan Love decision was completely mind-bogglingly stupid. You sign one free agent wide receiver in the offseason and it's Sammy Watkins, and you spend one early draft pick on a wide receiver and it's the one wide receiver least ready to contribute immediately in Christian Watson, who could turn out to be a terrific player. but I mean, like he was the greenest of all the top wide receiver prospects. And so like it's just been a series of stupefyingly bad drafts. Gutekunst is a terrible drafter. He's just I think he's like a Ryan Pace level general manager, which hurts me to say as a Packers fan, but Gutekunst is terrible at his job. So it's not all about the Rodgers cap number.
Where's Ron Wolf? Maybe we can get him back here. By the way, the Bills and Packers are on Sunday Night Football. Do we really think that Josh Allen isn't going to get pumped up for Sunday Night Football? I mean, geez. All right, let's get to this last one here. The Cincinnati Bengals take on the Cleveland Browns. The Cincinnati Bengals seem to be going in the right direction after a really tough start to the season. They are 3-point favorites on the road. 47 is the number. If you like the Browns for the upset, and I don't, it's plus 135. But Fitz, what do you see in this contest here? Any value in the look ahead?
I do. I'm going to take the Bengals. I've got them as a 3.5 point favorite. They have scored 27 or more points in 4 of their last 5. The only time where they failed to hit that number was in their 1917 loss to the Ravens a couple of weeks ago. And the Browns defense is really bad. Like I think the Bengals have it clicking and they're just going to march up and down the field.
All right, Freedman, your thoughts on this game here?
Yeah, as Fitz was talking, I was betting on this game. So the line is 3, and I have it at 3.75, which is enough for me to think that betting on it is value here. Totally with him. The Bengals have looked rejuvenated as they've shifted their offensive philosophy, just putting Burrow in the shotgun, not so much abandoning the run, but abandoning the style of running game that they have. And it's really freed up the offense where they can just let him rip it. And he's crushing in the passing game right now.
All right. Let's recap everything here with our 3 favorite look ahead bets. If you have 3 this week, Freedman, you're up first. What are the 3 things or 2 or 1 even that you want to lock in here early on, regardless of how disgusting you might feel?
Man, the Saints definitely there at +2, +2.5. I have this projected for the Saints as slight favorites. I think Fitz has it at around a pick 'em, but that's definitely one that I would be wanting to bet. And then, Houston, maybe. I don't know. I'm going to stick with that one. I'm going to say with the Saints right now.
All right. How about you, Pat? What do you want to lock in here at the end of the day?
The Saints at +2 for sure. And then I think I'm inclined to do a couple of these unders that we were talking about, Joe. Like Panthers, Falcons, that one just jumps out. I don't see how that one gets to anywhere close to 40. No, actually, I'll take that back. And for a third one, I want to jump on the Buccaneers. Like I think they are going to come roaring back coming off that humiliation. Like this, they've got issues, but they're too good to swallow a loss like that and not be feisty the next week.
Okay, right. I've got one more. More here in the spirit of unders. Jacksonville, Denver, under 40. Again, I have that projected in like around 38 or so, 38.5. I think there's value there.
100% agree. There you have it. That's the early look ahead for week 8. If you need more help, and of course, we're always here for you when you do, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Betting Pros. And also don't forget to go to bettingpros.com, check out all the great content, and of course, find all the best lines for you to wager upon. And we also have that prop bet cheat sheet too for every single game, the projections versus Vegas, how to take advantage of them. Well, that's the prop bet cheat sheet. And of course, thanks to BetMGM, the sponsor of the show, the king of sportsbooks. Download the BetMGM app today. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Matt and Pat, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.